Hello and welcome to a small guide for the setup page, which is found both in the raid assignments and the healing assignment sheet. The setup page looks something like this, and I'm just gonna go through the features and the how to use it really quickly in the hopes that it helps. First of all, when you open it, you're gonna want to fill out your roster here, which is pretty much just fill in the name in this column and fill in the main spec in this column. And it is as simple as just writing the name. Make sure to spell it correctly so it works with the weak off or calling heal cooldowns. But yeah, so you just write the name, and then in the drop down menu here, you can find all the specs. You just write it like this and pick a main spec. The off specs are not super important. You can choose to use them if you want. You don't have to. But it's like if you want the Death Knight to know specifically which off spec to play, then you can write it here, and then you can sign him as an off spec or an off spec. But other than that, it's not super important for DPS players. It's also not super important which main spec they are, because it's really only used for the healing cooldowns out here, and all the specs, like DPS specs, really have the same cooldowns, so it doesn't matter if you put him as a fire mage, arcane mage, or frost mage. It does matter as a healer though. Pretty much the only reason I implemented this is to handle disc priest and holy priests. So when you have a disc priest as an off spec here, then he will show up as a holy priest out here. So you can see he's named disc priest, but he has holy priest spells because that's his off spec. When you have filled out the names, then you have like a very standard setup here for putting people in and out on each bus. So you can click in this and you can see the options, which is in, out, makes sense. There's a standby option if you want people to know that they should be available for the bus, but they won't be in initially. There are off spec options, as I said before, and then there's an alt option. The alt option is really only there to communicate to the player that, hey, you're playing an alt. The sheet doesn't actually know which alt the boomkin has, because he might have many alts. But then you can list them down here at the bottom, and you can see that, okay, alt 1 is in, and that is the boomkin's alt, so he knows he needs to play this character. On top of that, we also have a section here that shows all the buffs that are good to know, because you preferably want to have all the raid buffs available. So yeah, you can see depending on how many people are in or off specs, they will have their buff listed up here. And say if we put the Holy Paladin out, we will lose the Devotion Aura. I guess this is a good time to mention that this page is a little bit laggy, at least in the healing sheet, not so much in the raid assignment sheet, but that's because it's updating a ton of things on all the pages every time you change this. But yeah, this will tell you which of the buffs you have and how many of them you have. There's also immunities that are listed with the specs, so you know if you have the immunities you require. There are some generic stats out to the side here. It's like whatever. You can even see main and off spec. And then, yeah, so all this might be a bit much to have on a setup page. So there's an option to collapse the sections like this. On the plus up at the top here, you can collapse the main spec, like the spec section basically. And then if you also don't want to see all the buffs here, you can also collapse this. Just click OK on this. Yeah, it's a lot more minimalistic this way, but you can still see if you have all the buffs in row 3 here. If this button is green, that means you've covered all the buffs. If it's red, then you probably want to open up and see, oh, we're missing a Devotion Aura. So put the Paladin in there, then we should see this turn green. You can also see up here, like how many raiders are in on the bus. 19 means you're missing one, 20 means you're good. And then finally, there's like a section for each player that says how many bosses they are in on. and it will turn yellow if they're like missing one boss for their weekly chest, which can be nice to know. Like, no one likes being one boss away from another option in the weekly chest, so we should probably give these guys all one boss, and then put someone else out who has plenty of bosses. So yeah, that is the setup page. Actually, oh wait, I missed something. Because I've split the healing assignments and the raid assignment sheet into two, that means that you might have to make the setup in the healing sheet and in the raid assignment sheet, which is super annoying. So I added a script that can pull the setup from one of your sheets into the other one. So this is my healing assignment sheet. Say I wanted to pull the setup from my raid assignment sheet here. I can just copy the URL from my raid assignment sheet, paste it into this cell here, and then click update setup. And then it will update all of this to be exactly what is in the other sheet. This might take a second to load. It's a pretty big ask, so I'm just gotta take some tea. Oh, there we go. Then it's updated. So this way you don't have to maintain two setups to use both the healing and raid assignments. But that is all. If that is not all, this is very hard to do in one take. There's also a button for exporting your setup. Let's just get our setup back here. This button here means that you will import a list of all the people who are in on the bus. So if we copy this, then we get this list here. And you can paste this into MRT, and it will basically like sort groups for you, which means putting the 20 people who need to be in on the bus in group 1 through 3 and 4, which makes it easy to know who is out on the bus. I don't use this, but it was requested. Yeah, and you can do this before your raid even starts, so it's very easy to sort the in and out people between each bus, and make your re-clears a bit more efficient. But this was all. Next video I want to see is probably the raid assignments video or the healing cooldown video.